Hi, my name is Austin, and today I'll be explaining how visual culture has been affected by globalization using a selection of pre-1500 historical sources. I will analyze these sources for style, material, and purpose to investigate regional influence on global trends. We will start over 3,000 years ago in the grassy regions of southern China and end right near home investigating sculptures on our Turtle Island. The story of art is a rippled reflection of humanity's broader story. By analyzing how regional visual cultures have been influenced and overhauled by globalization, we can discover how these regional communities have changed as well. This project covers approximately 1100 BCE to 1300 CE. Let's begin. To analyze how regional visual cultures were affected by globalization, we must first understand why each source was created. During my analysis, I classified these sources into three general categories based on what I believe their overarching purpose to be. These are to spread historical or cultural knowledge, to propagate a certain worldview, or to make items desirable for trade. These are, of course, overly generalized, and many of the sources fit into multiple categories. However, organizing visual sources in groups of common intention still allows us to discover how regional differences shape the final product and result. In short, the sources may have common goals, but were shaped by the regional culture and resources around them. Most sources are contained within the first two categories, spreading knowledge or propagating a certain worldview. The oldest of these is La Tigresse, and it is here that I'll begin my analysis. We begin in the low basins of Hunan Province in southern China. Our first source, the sculpture La Tigresse, was created here around 1100 BCE. We can pinpoint the location where the source was crafted due to the use of a specific type of bronze common only in this region. The sculpture is covered in various geometric patterns. The most prominent of these is a small square spiral, which was a common motif in visual culture during the late Shang era, providing further evidence of its creation around this time. It shows a boy either embracing or resisting the grip of a hybrid beast, one-third tiger, snake, and elephant. This sculpture was likely crafted for people of high status, as a high labor and skill required to produce such an item would be affordable only to those with great wealth. I classified this source as spreading historical or cultural knowledge because the sculpture is inspired by events in the Zuozhan, which was a well-known narrative history across China. Although it originates from a national grouping of stories, we can see regional influences when considering the increased depiction of zoomorphic elements, as those were more common in southern China at this time. The unique make of La Tigresse also suggests southern influence, as the specific green-black bronze used here was common only in this region. In this instance, the goal of spreading cultural and historical knowledge has been shaped both by the materials available and the region's visual culture, resulting in a uniquely brilliant sculpture with zoomorphic elements. Our next source is the Babylonian world map, which was created around 600 BCE in Babylon. This map is the first known attempt to depict the world geographically. It shows the city of Babylon and its surrounding geography. Babylon is represented by a horizontal rectangle near the top of the map, while the integral Euphrates River is shown running underneath it down the map, represented here by a vertical rectangle. Notably, the rectangles cross over each other, just as Babylon crossed over the Euphrates in real life. The part most integral to my analysis is the map's representation of the 8 regions surrounding Babylon. These circles, drawn in even spacing around the city, represent different kingdoms, regions, and cities that were in the area. Although they are not placed exactly where they are in real life, this attempt to represent other societies geographically still indicates knowledge and possible exchange with these societies, making this source global. A possible reason for the inaccurate spacing could be an over-reliance on cultural knowledge. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, there are said to be 8 regions formed after the Great Flood, evenly spaced from each other. The epic was popular in Babylon at this time, and the map makers may have relied on it to fill gaps in their own knowledge. I classified this source as spreading historical or cultural knowledge. Although the purpose of this map is not certain, the emphasis of the Euphrates River, which served as an integral part of trading networks, could indicate that it served to direct traders on the relative direction of their future destinations. This source is spreading knowledge about the region and is affected by regional cultural beliefs. It is unique and only could have come from Babylon. Our next source is the Scythian comb, a beautiful example of intricate carving and casting techniques. This source was crafted around 400 BCE by a Greek goldsmith who was living in close contact with the Scythians, a nomadic group who controlled large parts of the Eurasian steppe from 700 to 300 BCE. The comb depicts the death of Skiles, a former king of the Scythians, at the hands of his troops. This came after his betrayal of Scythian customs and subsequent endorsement of Hellenistic ones. Clearly, this comb serves as a warning to all those that think about betraying their Scythian ways. You will not be forgiven. This comb was found lying next to the head of a Scythian king, indicating that it was likely a valuable object crafted by artisans. The low level of wear on the source also supports its high status. The global connections of this source are twofold. First, there is a clear interchange of material culture, shown through the combination of Scythian and Greek armor displayed. Most soldiers in this source wear a combination of Greek and Scythian equipment, indicating material exchange between the two groups. For example, the soldier on horseback wears a Corinthian Greek helmet and Greek body armor, but Scythian trousers and boots. Secondly, the making of this object by a Greek artisan, shown through its use of gold and intricate detail, demonstrate that there was exchange in visual culture. Although this is a Scythian story, it is represented in a Greek style. I classified this source as both spreading knowledge and propagating a certain worldview. First, this source informs the viewer of the traditional story of Skiles, spreading Scythian culture to anyone who encounters this object. Secondly, this source serves to establish that anyone who betrays Scythian ways will be punished. This source portrays Scythians as unforgiving and proud. Our next source is the Bahram Gur. This source was created during the Ilkhanid rule of Iran from 1258 CE to 1336 CE. The Ilkhanid, descendants of Chinggis Khan, used sources like this one to insert themselves as mythical figures in Iranian history, therefore justifying their rule. This source depicts a popular story from the Iranian Shahnameh, also known as the Book of Kings. In this story, a tyrannical king named Bahram Gur visits a peasant's home in the countryside. While there, he hears the peasant's wife complain that the cow they own will not milk due to Gur's horrible rule. After hearing this, Gur resolves to become a benevolent ruler, and the milk starts to flow again. This story casts the ruling class in a positive light, making it a prime candidate for the Ilkhanid to adopt it as their own. In this source, Bahram Gur adopts Ilkhanid features. However, the artwork is still drawn in an Iranian style, making it more familiar to native residents. Later, another conquering group called the Indrids would use this same strategy to insert themselves into Iranian history. This other example of the story of Bahram Gur was composed around 1341. Instead of adopting the Iranian Seljuk style, the Inuits opted to formulate their own style, which was stilted and less detailed. The use of the same story by both the Indrids and Ilkhanids shows its importance to Iranian history and is evidence of clear cultural and visual exchange between Iran and its colonizers. This source is global because it shows an exchange of Iranian artistic style and story with Ilkhanid rulers. The Ilkhanid tried to integrate themselves into Iranian history by using historical stories with their own characters. This shows cultural and visual exchange. I classified this source as spreading a certain worldview because it seeks to assert the authority of the ruling class over their subjects. Like other entries we'll dive into later, this source represents their subject as authoritative, serious, and powerful. This source, while holding common goals, has been modified by the unique Iranian artistic style and story. Our next source is Periplus of the Athranian Sea. This document, created in the 1st century CE, records the travels of a merchant trading throughout the Indian Ocean and its neighboring societies. Written in a guiding style, this source provides evidence that there was significant exchange of visual culture between societies ringing the Indian Ocean. Two key points of evidence mentioned in the text are the exchange of unique regional clothing and the exchange of tortoise shells. Firstly, the exchange of artisan clothing in a quote-unquote Arabic style is mentioned multiple times throughout the text, indicating that recipients had knowledge of where the clothing originated and the visual culture it drew on. One passage records the exchange of, quote, clothing in the Arabian style, end quote, for Egyptian commoners, and for the king only, quote, gold and silver plate, images, and thin clothing of fine quality, end quote. These provide clear evidence of global exchange. Another piece of evidence for spread of visual culture is the exchange of tortoise shells. The author mentions two main islands involved in the production and export of tortoiseshell: Discordia, located just below the Red Sea in present-day Somalia, and Serapis, located off the coast of modern-day Oman in Arabia. Even though these two islands lie hundreds of kilometers apart, they export the same product, showing the far reaches of globalization during this time. It's possible that artisans would have decorated these shells to make them more desirable for consumers, necessitating exchange of visual culture. I classified this source's motivation as making items desirable for trade. Although there very well could have been an exchange of cultural, historical, or religious values included in the decoration of trading items, I saw no mention of this in the text. However, the exchange of certain styles indicates that producers sought to make their products unique and desirable for the consumer. Our next sources are the Aksumite coins. I referenced two coins here, one depicting King Izana, ruler of the African kingdom of Aksum, produced 325 to 360, and one depicting King Joel, a later ruler of the same kingdom, produced in the 5th century. These coins show how Aksumite visual culture was influenced by Christian societies to their north. The first coin is made from gold and depicts King Izana on both sides. He is facing rightward and is flanked by wheat stalks, indicating the importance of agriculture to this society. Crucially, this coin includes small crosses at each axis, suggesting that these coins were minted after King Izana's conversion to Christianity around 324 CE. These coins would have spread Christian visual culture throughout the region. It's likely that King Izana was influenced by the Coptic branch of Christianity that developed to his north in Egypt in the middle half of the 1st century. At the time this coin was created, Christianity had only just begun to ingrain itself with the upper classes of Aksum. The coin also includes Greek text, which was the language of choice for merchants from Hellenized societies like Rome or Egypt. This could indicate that the coin was intended to aid trade between Aksum and these societies, showing a strong global connection between the two. By the time of the second coin, minted around 200 years later, Christian symbols have come to dominate the source. Instead of small crosses at each axis, this coin displays a large cross on one side and King Joel on the other, clearly indicating his allegiance to Christianity. The increased prominence of Christian iconography on Aksum currency suggests that currency had spread among the upper classes and become a powerful force in the region. This coin only includes local Ge'ez text, which indicates it was meant for use only among the Aksum. The interaction of Aksum-created portraits and Coptic symbolism is evidence of an exchange of visual culture between Aksum and Christian societies to its north. I classified this source as spreading a certain worldview and spreading historical or cultural knowledge. First, the coin clearly aims to associate the kings with Christian ideals, spreading a Christian worldview. Furthermore, the coin engages in a heretic style, depicting the kings as stern, authoritative, and strong. This coin spreads cultural knowledge through the use of local Ge'ez text. This text, although not as useful as Greek for exchange, would still have been encountered by merchants and anyone who used the earlier coin. In this sense, Aksum is spreading its unique culture. Our next source is a stone-carved depiction of Lady Khatun, the queen of a small city-state, Naman. This source records the marriage of Lady Khatun to a neighboring ruler, King Kinich Yonao Ak II, of the powerful Mayan city-state, Piedras Negras. This source was created shortly after 686 CE, the date of their marriage, in what is now northwest Guatemala. Analyzing the source visually brings out some key aspects. First, the queen's headdress makes up over half of the image. This disproportional size could indicate its importance to the queen's authority. Further, the use of feathers on her crown could seek to reference the Mayan god Kukulkan, a feathered serpent who Mayans believed controlled the wind, rain, and growth of crops. By referencing Kukulkan, Lady Khatun invokes divine authority, perhaps suggesting that she too has control of the growth of crops, something integral to the agricultural Mayan society. Lastly, there is very little symmetry in the image. Even the robe the queen is wearing is not symmetrical. This is a drastic change from many other heretic-style portraits of rulers, which often use symmetry to center their rulers and invoke a sense of order and balance. I classified this source as spreading a certain worldview, as it engages in a similar heretic style to Seljuk and Aksumite art, seeking to affirm the authority of its subjects. This source is global because it records and affirms the union between Lady Khatun and King Kinech Yonal Akh II, therefore necessitating economic, cultural, and religious exchange between the two societies. This source would have spread historical and cultural knowledge throughout the two societies and the broader region through its depiction of the queen's traditional clothing and her reference to the Mayan god Kukulkan. Our next source is the Macoupin Creek figure pipe, produced between 1050 and 1300 CE in what is now Ohio. During this time, there were multiple unique nations living in this region. Because of this, we don't know exactly which nation created this source. However, the pipe is crafted in a Cahokian style, possibly indicating that it originated from Cahokia, which was a large urban center north of where this source was found. The pipe depicts a crouched man looking forward with a neutral expression. He holds a rattle in his right hand, wears a conch shell on his head, and has beaded decorations on his ears and a raccoon skin headdress. Although there are no holes visible in this photo, the style of the source suggests that this device would have been used to inhale tobacco for religious ceremonies. There are multiple indicators of possible global exchange in this source. First, the depiction of a conch shell on the figure's head is clear evidence of long-distance exchange, as those shells are not common in the region. It's possible that this shell could have been sourced through previously established Adena or Hopewell trading networks that stretched down to the Gulf of Mexico. The other clothing could have been sourced locally or through exchange. Snakes are common in this region and continue to be so today, meaning the figure likely sourced this skin locally. However, it is difficult to say for certain, as the exact breed of the snake is not clear. We know that other nations also use snakeskin and raccoon fur for clothing at this time, and it's possible that this nation could have obtained those goods through exchange. Further, the pipe shares some artistic elements with other sculptures found around this region. This Cahokian-style pipe found near Macoupin Creek and the Adena Pipe Man both depict human figures, crouched and looking forward. Both wear serpentine-style clothing. Both wear elaborate headdress. However, only the Macoupin Pipe Man holds shakers. Lastly, the pipe's unique color and quality suggest material exchange. Although I initially thought the material was a regional variation on the soft stone observed in other effigy pipes around the area, research by Farnsworth and Emerson suggests that it is made from either Missouri fireclay or granite. Neither of these materials were common near Cahokia, necessitating exchange with harvesting societies further south. I classified this source as spreading cultural or historical knowledge. Any nation who encountered this pipe would gain new knowledge about common Mississippian region beliefs in shamanistic ritual and artistic style. They could make connections between this source and similar pipes found around the area. Throughout history, art has served as an indispensable tool for recording human experience. In this project, I sought to discover common themes between art around the world and understand why we focus on these themes. Through my analysis of pre-1500 sources, I discovered that the goals of each source could be sorted into three general categories. We wish to project authority, share our historical and cultural knowledge, and exchange desirable goods with others. After this project, I've gained a greater understanding and appreciation of pre-1500 global connections and the common humanity we share. Further research should be conducted to see if these common themes could be refined or expanded to include a greater selection of sources. Finally, I would like to thank my instructor, Professor Knudsen, who has been a vital resource throughout this process.